Hello you, welcome to Geekism. A couple of weeks ago I was invited down to London, where all the shops are, to visit Sega Europe HQ to have a play of the yet to be released 2 Point Hospital. It's actually coming to Steam at the end of August. Whilst I was there, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Ben Huskins, the lead designer, and Chris Knott, the lead animator, to chat about the game. Hello you, welcome to Geekism. Welcome to a very special video happening from Sega HQ here in London. I've just realised there's an amazing Sonic the Hedgehog mural behind the camera that you're not going to see. Never mind, it looks dead good though, I promise. I'm joined by two of the development team from 2 Point who are working on the fantastic 2 Point Hospital. Please welcome Ben, who is lead designer, excuse me. I asked like 4 times before the video as well. I knew I'd get it wrong. And Chris, who's lead animator.
Correct.
Oh, there you go. I've got one of you right. That's good enough, isn't it? So they very kindly said they would sit down with me for a few minutes and answer some of the questions that I've got about the game. So for those of you people who don't know, can you give us a bit of a background behind 2 Point as a studio? So how long have you been going, and where have you all sort of come from, and maybe like a little bit about your lineage?
Yeah. So, I mean, 2 Point Studios started, it's about pretty much 2 years ago, actually. It was July 2016. Apparently so, according to LinkedIn.
Yeah, I gave you a thumbs up.
So LinkedIn is useful for something.
Yeah, although it's actually not until the 26th of July.
July?
So, July, did I?
Oh, okay.
So Gary Carr, Mark Webley and Ben Huskins, the founders of 2 Point Studios, they've been talking about getting together to bring back these interesting humorous simulation games in the style of the old Bullfrog games and things like the movies. It was July that we got together. I think Chris, you joined.
I joined in October.
Yeah.
I joined in October. Yeah.
So yeah, it's been two years we've been working on the game.
And it's so since the company started, 2 Point Hospital, that's been the first project, and that's been working on for 2 years now.
Yeah.
But like you say, you mentioned there the sort of lineage of things like the movies from Lionhead and Bullfrog, obviously. So it's a very conscious decision for this studio to focus on these sort of classic, these classic sort of sims.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
we've got the pedigree in the company for that style of game.
Yeah.
Gary set up Monkey Foot, which made Startopia, which I animated on with Gary. That he gave me my first job 20 years ago.
Awesome. And
now he's just now we're back together again.
So it must be quite nice for you guys to get back and with people you've worked with for years gone by.
So it just made sense to do these type of games. But again, it's that humour. It's these type of strategy games, but with kind of
they kind of go hand in hand, don't they? The sort of that British humour and sort of sim, for some reason, kind of go together. There's a bit of a larger sort of resurgence in the sim game in the industry. Have you any idea why that might be? Over the last few years, we've had things like Prison Architect. After years of having nothing, we sort of had Planet Coaster and all those. And now recently, we've had things like Jurassic World and Parkosaurus on the way. This sort of management simulation seems to be having a bit of resurgence. Do we know why?
It's a great question. I mean, I think the last few years, I guess you've got the indie scene has been creating lots of interesting sim games, and that's probably kind of spread up to the chain, right? Like you've got all these interesting ideas people playing around with from some of the old sim games, and when we first started, we were talking about games like Prison Architect and City Skylines. Those were a bit of an inspiration for us.
But that's quite a bit of a full circle, because I imagine those took a lot from original titles like the movies.
But
and
it is
as well.
cyclical, isn't it? It's everything. There's only so long you could have a kind of every game being an open world, kind of GTA or something like Red Dead.
It does kind of work,
which are awesome, but then people want something different. So they're like, those strategy games, they're really good. And then like, I mean, 2 years ago, which games weren't zombie games?
Yeah, exactly. Or crafting survival.
Exactly.
And
now they've just disappeared.
Yeah.
So,
funnily enough, we bumped into the Introversion guys at Res, I believe it was, and we had that conversation with them. We said, we're working on 2 Point Hospital. We talked a lot about Prison Architect when we first started, and we had that exact conversation where they said, we talked a lot about theme hospital when we first
That's good though. I like that it also comes in. So Many people, myself included, when they first heard that 2 Point Hospital was being announced, would have been more than happy with just a HD remake of Theme Hospital. Pretty much Theme Hospital with some nice graphics, we'd have all been happy. But the industry has moved on a lot since then, games have moved on a lot since then. So what sort of processes did you guys have to make sure that this wasn't just, you know, shiny Theme Hospital and, you know, bringing it actually into more of a modern gameplay?
Yeah, well, I think we looked at lots of other sim games and also just kind of sat back and thought, you know, what are things that frustrate us about any of the old sim games, and you know, what might people expect in 2018, and so it was quite an important thing for us to you know, sidestep from what's come before and have things like fleshing out the idea of 2 Point County and making that seem like a really interesting world, and never losing any of the things that you're working on. You're always building up and building out. You never throw away one of your hospitals, that they always persist and you can come back later on. That was an important thing for us, I think. And obviously just it being all in 3D and everything, there's a lot of stuff we've been able to do. All of the amazing animations.
From an animation perspective, yeah, we can put so much more into the characters, because effectively all you're doing is watching these little people.
Well, I just had about an hour with the game before, and I spent a good 20 minutes there just watching the characters. They're very characterful.
Yeah, that's part of the charm of this type of game, is that you put your bits in place and then you just stand back and watch and go, right, is this going to work? Yeah. And it's kind of, sometimes it's more fun when it doesn't, which is one of the good bits about these kind of games, is sometimes you kind of want things to fail. Just because you like what happens when it does.
You can see.
I'll take that hit and I'll fix all this. But that's one of the things that we can do now. I think that wasn't, you didn't see it as much 20 years ago, because the games have just evolved. They've just changed. There's so much.
That leads me on to my next question. Actually, is there anything from an actual sort of production point of view that's really shifted in the last sort of 20 years? You know, the difference between Theme Hospital and 2 Point Hospital. Is it, you know, workflow just in general allows you to kind of make more mistakes, I guess, because stuff's easier to rattle through, or
we've been
the design choices.
Of course, working as intended.
It's fine.
We're working with Unity, so from quite early on we were able to get the basic mechanics of the game up and running, and so I mean we've been in a position where we've been playing the game for more than a year, really, with a lot of the sort of key features in there.
Yeah, because these engines have got sort of the building blocks set up that you can kind of just throw stuff in and get going with them.
Plus we know the genre of game inside out, so
of course,
it's one of those natural fits that it just got everything in and went, right, let's play with it, see what works.
We briefly touched on this before, but I made a note here that I'm a big fan of the idea of going into a general healthcare association organisation, as opposed to just sort of having each hospital as an individual level. So is there anything you can say about what sort of influenced that decision? Or
I think part of it came down to initially that frustration in some of the more level-based games where you do feel like, oh, I've just been making this awesome thing and it's gone now. And so from that, you know, we just thought, well, how can we structure the game in a way that actually gives you a reason to come back later on? So the way we've structured the game, each hospital has a star rating. You can get up to 3 stars in each one. When you get to the first star, that in some cases then opens up a new area that you can establish a new hospital. So if you want to move on at that point, you can do, but you might want to return later on, because there are extra things that you'll unlock by gaining the 2nd star and the 3rd star in each hospital. You might get some new machine upgrades, or some new decorative items, or there's a currency that's tracked at the organisation level rather than the hospital.
I noticed there were like Ks or something.
Yeah, it's the kudosh.
Kudosh, right? Okay,
it's known as, and so that's tracked as part of your overall healthcare organisation, so you can keep accumulating it regardless of which hospital you're playing in, and then use that to gain access to new items, and then once you've unlocked that, you can use it in any of your hospitals. And it's similar with things like research as well. You can do some research somewhere, and in fact you can get halfway through a research project and then jump to another hospital in your organisation and continue that research, because everyone's contributing to that shared pool.
That's a really good shift, I think. For instance, with Theme Hospital, you would finish a hospital, they move on to the next one, and they got no idea what Bloaty Head was, and you have to start all over again. And there is a sort of a bit of a frustration in that I've got to get built up to kind of where I was before we can start seeing more stuff. So that's a really elegant solution to that.
We kind of had lots of conversations about how can we do that in a way that makes it feel like I'm progressing and always keeping stuff, but there's still work that I have to do in each hospital. So with things like a machine upgrade, I can research it. But once I've got it, I still have to apply that upgrade to my machines. So
it's not like you can go back to the first one where you've got loads of money and figure everything out.
Exactly. We've tried to design it so that you can try and specialise in each hospital. So you might have a hospital where, this is actually quite good for research, so I might try and do more of my research in that hospital, but then there'll still be a reason to go do other stuff.
That's art imitating life there as well, though, isn't it? You do get hospitals that are focused on different areas of research. Okay, good. So people watching this, if they're a fan of my channel, will know that Geekism is focused around creative gaming, often to the detriment of gameplay. I noticed in the demo I played there's so many little bits of tat that you can just put around, charity tubs and leaflets, and I'm absolutely so over the moon with that, and also just being able to take stuff off the grid, rotate and move things around like that. I noticed personally a shift in video games over the last sort of 10 years. Probably Minecraft was the big one that did it. The idea that gaming isn't just ticking boxes. Now you can just play a game because it's fun to do something. Is that something you've tried to come across with here? So it's not so much just sort of finishing a level. It's more about just being happy with something you've created.
We definitely want people to just play with the sim and see what kinds of results they get. And all of the animations and behaviours we've put in the game, you get these interesting reactions to the choices you've made and the items that you've decided to put down. Like, for example, fill your hospital with energy drinks machines instead of the standard drinks machines, and suddenly everyone's running around the hospital with an energy buzz.
Oh, that's great. So some of it does actually sort of feed back into the simulation as well.
And then the plants you put down, they've actually all got slightly different stats. So if you put the rose bushes down, they're really beautiful. Everyone loves them, but they need watering quite often. Whereas you can put the cactus down, and it's not going to need watering very often, but it's not quite as beautiful.
Not quite as good. Wow, that's fantastic. That's really much deeper than I thought it would be.
You can fill your research room with servers to try and boost the rate at which you're doing research. But then the servers have a temperature effect.
Right, okay.
So you then have to stop putting aircon in to keep your researchers cool enough.
And just keep going.
Yeah.
That's great. When this is being recorded, the NHS actually celebrates 70 years of going today, which is quite a nice sort of tie-in. As many issues as it has now, I still think it's one of the best things Britain's ever done. Obviously your game is full of crazy illnesses and light bulbs coming off people's heads. Was there any point where you went into hospitals for research or anything like that? Is any of it focused on actually how they run, or is it completely all sort of fabricated and fantasy?
I think we sometimes talk about the realities of what it could be, but then consciously step away from it. I mean, we're not trying to be realistic. But I think we'll look at things like how are different types of hospitals funded, for example. And I'll be honest, I don't actually know the ins and outs of it all. But at a very high level, we can go right. Okay, private healthcare organisation. This is how it will work. And then a public healthcare organisation. How's that going to work? So we've tried to put elements of that into the different hospitals in the game. I mean, it is about your own private healthcare organisation, but we have a level in the game where you're effectively asked to step in and help with a public hospital.
Right.
And suddenly the funding mechanisms are all out the window. You don't get money from the patients.
Yeah, well, that was always one of the things with the original theme hospitals, that somebody would, a patient would go somewhere and a little money would pop above their heads, and as a British person that's quite distant. We don't really see that sort of gameplay, do we? In real life, we don't see that. It's all sort of free at the point of use, so that's quite interesting to sort of go from a bit of an approach where it's more sort of about funding as opposed to sort of people sitting there and paying for whatever they just
and we've tried to do that with all of the hospitals, make them feel slightly different, like having teaching hospitals where a lot of the objectives are based around training, or a research hospital where the objectives are all about what kind of new discoveries can you make. So yeah, we've kind of taken sort of high-level concepts of like, yes, teaching hospitals exist and research hospitals exist and public hospitals exist, and but not dive too far into
sort of boil them down to more of a gameplay experience.
Exactly, what works, what's fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think as well as that, I know a few people who work in hospitals, doctors, nurses, physios, and when I've spoken to them about if I don't find out what I'm doing, their reaction is always, "Oh, why?" And I'm like, "Well, because it's what we're," and then I kind of explain what we're doing, that we're not doing real diseases, we're not doing kind of a realistic thing. And they've all said it was kind of odd because that is the kind of mentality we have. That you have to, when you work in hospital, you have to have that kind of slightly odd outlook on life because you're dealing with such serious things that there is that level of weirdness that is just a little bit odd. You go, that doesn't really happen, does it?
I can totally relate to that. Well,
but it has to, because it's just part and parcel of their everyday life. So when I describe what goes on in our hospital, they're like,
it's not far off.
It's not far off, to be honest. It's not that
weird. Before this, I was an undertaker for a living, and my wife's a paramedic. So our first date was doing exactly that, just trying to gross each other out with the first stories. Pretty much, she won. She's seen some stuff. Last thing I've got written down, 2 Point Movie Studios. When can we expect 2 Point Movie Studios? That's got to be next, surely. We were saying before that we're playing the movies on the channel, and I would love nothing more than to...
Maybe one day.
Love to see another go on that. One thing I've got here, I thought this would be quite fun, because obviously your game is all about sort of fake doctors and nurses, and you've got some awesome names for them as well. I don't know what sort of naming system you've got in there, but there's some you'll see on the video, there's some really great naming structures. I thought I would test you on other doctors and nurses. Okay, so I've got a list of doctors and nurses from TV, film, other games, things like that. I'm going to see how well you know your doctors and nurses. All right, they start easy. I'll warn you, they start so easy. One of them's probably in this room somewhere. Okay, Dr. Robotnik. Where would you see Dr. Robotnik?
Maybe over there.
Yeah, it's right, okay. Well, but I think he's actually called something else.
Dr. Eggman.
Yeah, he'll always be Robotnik as far as I'm concerned.
I think he's kind of been rebranded a bit.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure there's Eggman for a bit, so he's gone back to Robotnik, who knows. The artist formerly known as Dr. Robotnik, I think he is. Dr. Nick Riviera.
From The Simpsons. Is that right?
Johnny's in there, yeah, very good. Yeah, he is. Another easy one, Hannibal Lecter.
Oh yeah. From Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, good. An extra points. We've suddenly turned this into a competition, by the way. You're losing.
I'm not even going to try.
Nurse Ratchet.
Nurse Ratchet.
Oh, damn it! No, I know the name.
I'm looking at Lawrence.
Any ideas, Lauren?
Nurse Ratchet.
I know the name.
It's a
dead famous one. I was googling it on the way down.
Is it a game or is it?
It's a book and film.
Oh.
Book and
Nurse Ratchet. Well, I'm going to kick
it's not
myself.
like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, is it?
Boom!
Boom!
Look at that out of nowhere.
Not even on camera.
Oh my god.
I know, I'm not even sure the mic will pick you up. It might just sound like we're talking to ourselves. Dr. Emmett Brown.
Okay,
From Back to the Future.
Very good, okay. Nurse Joy.
Ooh. Pokemon?
Oh yeah, was you going to say it? Yeah, Pokemon, yeah. And there's some tricky ones now. Dr. Drake Ramore.
From Friends.
Oh, straight in there. He's good at this.
Days of Our Lives.
Very good, from Days of Our Lives. Show within a show.
I've rewatched the whole thing.
It's on Netflix, isn't it? We've just recently gone through them all as well. John Dorian.
Oh, John Dorian.
Dr. John Dorian.
Oh, is that Shades of something to Grey?
No. No. Whatever you do behind closed doors is up to you.
Is he a doctor?
No, he's Dorian Gray.
Oh, that's where I've heard from. Right, okay.
No, Dr. John Dorian.
I'm
being a bit sneaky with this one, I'm honest with you. Because he's not really known as John Dorian.
Is he not a real doctor? Is he's just got a PhD?
No, he's a medical... Apologies if anyone who has a PhD is watching. You are real doctors.
My dad's got a PhD.
Right, so he's a doctor of...
You laugh at him.
Yeah. No, he's a proper doctor, he's a medical doctor, but he's not known as John Dorian, he has a nickname. You've already said the actual show that he's from.
Scrubs.
Yeah, it's JD from
Ah,
Scrubs. His name is
yeah.
Dr. John Dory, and there you know, you're learning something every day. Dr. Henry Wu.
Henry Wu.
No, see, I wouldn't have known this one until recently, only because we've been playing Jurassic World Evolution on the channel. That's the Doctor from Jurassic Park.
Is he the one who's now in the original film? He seemed like quite a nice guy.
Yeah,
He's
and then he's
some
like a
evil
nasty. Yeah, really.
Yeah.
I don't get. That's a big shift in
What was
character
it?
development. That one, and the last one. It sounds like this is actually then her name. Hello Nurse. Her name is listed on the sheet as Hello Nurse.
Hello. Is that because like she just says hello?
No, she doesn't say anything,
Oh.
but people to her go, "Hello Nurse."
Man, I don't
As an animator, you
I
should
don't know
this.
enough about doctors and nurses, I tell you.
As an animator, you should know this because it's one of the greatest bits of animation ever
It's
made.
not,
I think.
Who framed Roger Rabbit?
No, but you're on the right sort of lines.
I haven't got a clue.
I'll tell you what then, I'll leave that one. I'll leave that one for the comments. You let me know where Hello Nurse is from. Thank you so much for your time, gentlemen.
Thank you.
2 Point Hospital is going to be released later this year, and check out the channel for lots more content. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed it, give us a like. It really helps out the channel. And I'll see you in the next one.